You have um, a program that is it's a 5 week reboot for people. How can people find that home feeling again for themselves within their couple, or excuse me, within their relationship? How can they reboot things?
Yeah, that's a great question. The first step is I go back to making that decision of choosing to work on something that you believe in and that you want to improve, right? And so when that happens, when two people say yes, we want to make this better, I see my role as just simply guiding them in new language. And I screw up just as much as you, just as much as the next guy. I say this all the time. Every single person on the planet has the ability to be thoughtless, lazy, and insensitive multiple times a day. Like, who honestly isn't thoughtless, lazy, and sensitive at least 5 times in a day? You know what I mean? And so, if if we can build good, clear communication around how we show up in our relationship by asking for what we want and then also receiving what we want. And this is why I've just launched my podcast. It's not an interview podcast like the one we're on. It's more a 21-day challenge. It's a relationship challenge. I'm calling it Chosen and Cherished. 21 days to the relation basically to the relationship that you want. It's this it's changing the way you talk to your partner and simply being clear and direct about what you want, and so that it becomes muscle memory and automatic that they reply with how can I help you get what you want, right? And if we could just do that together, that's like 90% of getting back to home, right? And now you need that commitment and to want to work on the relationship and to put the effort into the relationship for sure. But what I see happen in my approach is as people slowly start to get what they want, they start sweeping their own side of the street. So when they're thoughtless, lazy, and insensitive, they're asking their partner, how can I make it up to you? Now think of that phrase, that silly little phrase, how can I make it up to you? I'd really love to make love tonight. Oh, I'm too tired, but how can I make it up to you? Like, how beautiful would that be if the conversation went that way, as opposed to, someone slamming the door and storming off, right? And so it's just it, and the way I describe it to my clients is like you could take a beautiful Ferrari engine and try to turn it on, and it won't turn on unless you add oil. And the only reason why I know this is because I bought a generator. We have a lot of power outages in our house. I bought this brand new generator, filled it with gas, tried to turn it on, it wouldn't start. Well, it won't start because it needs oil, right? I know nothing about, I'm not mechanical in any way, shape, or form, but the parts don't move unless you lubricate them. Well, this is what our language is. It's the lubrication to our relationship. So when I'm recognizing that I'm being thoughtless, lazy, or insensitive, and I can go to my wife and vice versa, and we can have a conversation about it, and we can improve the language that we use in our relationship, that's what oils the machine. And that's how you get home, because that you can turn that machine on and literally drive it back to the home that you're looking for, right? And I speak Japanese, I speak Dutch, I'm now working on Spanish. And you know even in language, when you're picking up a second or a third language and you're in that country, where the better you speak the language, life opens up. You start having small conversations with the hotel staff, with the airport staff, with people that you meet on the street in the yoga studio and stuff like that. Like, life is better when you speak language. Now, I don't buy into I heavily criticize that book, The Five Love Languages or whatever. Because I think it's just a ridiculous book pointing out how couples are different than one another. And again, going back to pop psychology, WebMD, people start diagnosing what their love language is versus their partners, and now all of a sudden they're just noticing how they're different from their partner. He speaks this, she wants this, and whatnot, and all that. It's just divisive. And I think the reason why that book appeals to so many people is because it's no different than society, left, right, up, down. Which side of the aisle are you on? All it does is create divisiveness. I'm not even remotely interested in how my wife likes something more than I do. It's not even remotely interesting. What's interesting, and I'll paint this little picture. Um, Everyone has been to like the local park or the ski hill where they've run into that couple in their 60s that clearly went to the sporting goods store and they bought the his or her version of the same bike, except hers is pink and his is blue, or they bought the same ski outfit, or maybe they bought the same raincoats. You're on that hiking trail and they clearly went out this exact same day and bought the exact same outfit, just different colors. And there's a reason why that couple's still holding hands in their 60s and their 70s, is because they've cultivated sameness. Their question is, how are we the same, not how we're different. Now tell me, how is that any different than the Bible telling us to become one flesh? Because that's what I read into that verse, into the scripture. How are we the same? Right? So you want to get home, you want to get back to the place of home, start talking about how you're the same. Look for ways that you're the same. Ask each other questions about what your same goals are, what your same life would look like, how many times you want to be intimate in a week, right? How much money you want to save every month, where you guys like to go on vacation, all these things. How can you be more of the same? That's the muscle you want to flex. The muscle of independence and how you're different, that's so strong, you don't even need to work on that, right? You need to work on how you're the same.
That's awesome. I mean, I did read, of course, the 5 love languages, and it's passed around. Needless to say, ironically, I'm, words of affirmation, right? Here in a podcast makes a little bit of sense and whatnot. But I really like that. What you're getting at here, and it sounds to me, you're very, as you mentioned earlier, you're very find the solution, right? And it sounds like what you focus on, you empower. So focus on what you're the same. Focus on the commitment you guys have made. Focus on what you want, not what you need, not what you don't want, not the boundaries. Focus on what you want and go in that direction. If someone did wanted to do a quick checkup, how would they go about that? Let's start there while I try to see if I can find this.
Yeah, see if you can find it. For me, the most important thing is asking. I go back to that one point about sameness, right? So, can you list out all the things that you love about your relationship, and ask yourselves, if these things disappeared, the morning coffee you make for me, or the lunch that you like to pack, or the DMs, the message that I send checking in, right? Make a list of all the things that you deeply, deeply love about your relationship, that you would be super sad if they no longer happened. Just that simple question, what would you deeply be sad about if it was no longer happening in your relationship? That to me is the more that you could write and the more that you could fill up that page, to me, would be a very good quick litmus test of what you see in your relationship. Because it all boils down to, what do you see? Is your view of your relationship overwhelmingly positive or overwhelmingly negative? And if your view of your relationship is overwhelmingly negative, and it's very difficult for you to list out a bunch of things that are really positive that you enjoy happening on a day-to-day basis, then I would say that the healthier relationship is not going to be in a great place.
What's going on, guys? If you like that clip right there, you will love the full interview. You can check that out right there. I'll see you on the next video. Oh, and subscribe, because we got a lot of big things coming up in the near future.